Hi, Carrie, colleagues. You okay?
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Alison.
Afternoon, everybody. Welcome. And we'll probably just leave it a couple of minutes because we normally get a few people join just directly after the time slot. So if we just wait a couple of minutes and then we'll make a start. Thank you. Okay, Bushra, if you just hand over to you in a sec. I just wanted to say we are recording the meeting. I know it says that on the we'll remind you of that on the slides. And the main reason is that obviously not everybody can join at this time. So we do share the recording on our website and we share a link to that as well to all our members. And we do find that a lot of people dial in and watch the recording. Whilst we've got around about 30 people on the call so far, there will be many more people will log on and review the recording. So thank you very much, and I'll hand you over to Bushra.
Right, hello, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to yet another UKOA meeting for our members. It's a very, important subject, especially now as with the new government and hopefully ophthalmology getting more due share. So we will just get to our meeting agenda in a minute. I just need to share the housekeeping sort of slides first. So just a few things, reminders to colleagues, please stay mute unless you're speaking. We do have a Q&A session at the end of each presentation. So please, if you have any questions, please do raise your hand during or preferably at the end of the presentation. It would be really nice if you could just state your name and your role so that the presenters can then appropriately sort of target the question that you are asking. We are monitoring the chat function, so you can write down your questions as well, and we can pass them on at the end of each presentation. So please, as any ideas, things come to your mind during the presentation, do write them down in the chat box. As Alison has already explained, we do record these meetings, and the slides as well as the content of the meeting is shared with our members, and it's quite sort of widely and with big numbers seen at a later date, but we've got good numbers now. Going to the next slide, if I may, please. So the agenda today. So I'm Bushra Mushtaq, chair of UKOA. Sorry, I should have introduced myself before. For people who've not met me or seen me before, one of the ophthalmologists from Birmingham Midland Eye Centre. So we've got a whole 2 hours of very interesting talks. The subject basically is the primary and secondary care communication and integration, which is such an important aspect of our service, and we are working on various things that would improve this further. But yeah, so we've got series of presenters with excellent talks. I think the plan is for each presenter to sort of hand over to the next one. We will finish hopefully at around 2. And if there are any sort of questions, please feel free to ask towards the end or write them down. Thank you so much. Next slide, please. Just a reminder, we have got our schedule of next whole year's meetings, both face-to-face as well as virtual ones. And the next slide will show you all the dates. Please make a note. These are the themes are around topics our colleagues, our members have suggested. So very much what's required at the moment, the meetings, the subjects are, topics are organized around that. Please note our next in-person meeting on the 9th of October in London. Please, if you have to apply for leave, it's a good time to do that. Organize yourselves for attendance. It's going to be a very, very interesting meeting, as most of them are. But yeah, so the GIRFT NHSE Further Faster program, to know a bit more about it and where we are and its impact in Devon. Our presenter, the main person for the meeting would be Professor Tim Briggs, and we will have other topics related to the subject, which we will confirm closer to time. Next slide, please. So these are the scheduled meetings. Please take a note. These dates are available on our website as well. So and they will be part of the link that we send out to everyone. So I think that's really about it for these introductions. We'll get into the main agenda and we will have our first speaker. Kindly introduce yourself and the topic. The topics that we've put down, these are the rough, I think, ideas about the presentation. So I would now invite Peter Thomas to please present. Thank you so much. Thank you, Peter. And if you don't mind introducing yourself, please. Thank you.
Will do, yeah. Hopefully everyone can see my slides. Shout if you can't. So yeah, my name's Pete Thomas. I'm a paediatric ophthalmologist, somewhat lapsed. I'm the Chief Clinical Information Officer and the Executive Director of Digital Development at Moorfields, and I serve as the Digital Clinical Lead for the NHS England Eye Care Transformation Programme. So what I'm going to talk about this afternoon is some of the work we've been doing and essentially building since about 2001 in north central London about our approach to handling referrals across the system, what is often called a single point of access, but in reality what we do is quite a lot more than just simply sort of handling and processing referrals. To give a little bit of a idea, so we're currently active in 2 ICSs. So we're in north central London. We've been live since the 1st of July. We were asked to come in and take over referral processing and went live very, very quickly. And since then, we've done about 14,000 referrals in north central London. And then day before Halloween last year, we were asked to support the inner 4 boroughs of northeast London. And to date, we've processed about 5,357 referrals between the 2 of them. We are one of the NHS England Eye Care Accelerator sites, so that means our funding initially to get things going was provided by NHS England. And the approach in the two ICSs is slightly different, reflecting the individual needs of the ICSs, but the core model is essentially that we deliver these services in partnership between different providers. So the North Central London service has clinical leadership between Moorfields and the Royal Free, and we've recently won the tender in North Central London to provide a single point of access as part of being the lead provider for community ophthalmology in North Central London for the next 5 years, and that's Moorfields in clinical partnership with the Royal Free. So one of the really key parts of the model is that it's not a single thing, it's linked into other parts of the system. What our offer essentially is, this is a slightly old one, but we've never found out a way to show it better. It's a bit like a Trivial Pursuit, one of those cheese wheels. We base it around a core minimum viable service. Now, anybody who needs a single point of access needs a way to receive referrals, do something with them, and then action them and send them on or reject them or respond with advice. So our minimum viable service is really that. That's the core bit of what we traditionally understand to be a single point of access. We have taken a very pragmatic approach to how we handle referrals. So we receive referrals via ERS from GPs and optometrists, by NHS mail. We've done an awful lot of work to bring optometrists onto NHS mail. And also in the not too distant future, we'll be offering a portal as well, because what we found from our user research was that what works for one optometry practice may not work for another one. So therefore, we're quite flexible in terms of how we receive referrals. From the point we receive them, all those referrals are consolidated onto a single digital system, fully fail-safe, fully automated. So we'll shortly be switching off pretty much the last bits of our manual processing when we finish moving on to a new platform. And from that point onwards, everything is on ERS. So the ICB has complete access to all of the data to understand where referrals are coming from, where they're going to, and to assure themselves that everything's been handled in an unbiased service. We've got 5 work packages that we built on top of that basic service. Number 1 was using data and AI. So we built a digital twin, which I'll show you later, that allows us to understand what's happening in the system and make some changes. Work package 2 is around building some advice and guidance services. Got some data on that later. Work package 3 is one that I think is probably going to be the long-term most beneficial, and that's really how we're using the data we get from referrals to tailor education pathways to our referrers. I'll show you some information about that shortly. Work package 4, we've done quite a lot of work trying to improve the delivery of patient information, quite a lot of qualitative research. Now that we're firmly established as part of the scenery in NCL, the work now over the next few months will be make sure that we're getting better patient information out. And work package 5 was the technology bit, rolling NHS mail out, rolling ERS out, and actually coming in with a new portal as well shortly. What's the impact been on referrals? I mean, here's a few of them that we picked out. So we did an audit of 500 consecutive referrals to understand what the true performance of the system was. We identified that 40% of the referrals we receive had been directed towards the wrong clinical subspecialty, and 58% of the referrals we received as urgent could be downgraded to routine, which allowed us to protect those urgent slots for truly urgent patients and make sure routine ones are being used appropriately. We certainly haven't been asked or gone big on rejecting referrals. Our job is not to gatekeep, but simply by applying North Central London's EBICS criteria, we're already able to drive a 9% reduction, and we're able to further reduce on top of that by providing advice and guidance services. One of the key things, which I'll show you on the next slide, is our rapid turnaround time. So 1% of all our referrals aren't just urgent, they're actually true emergencies, even though we're not open for emergencies. And because we have such a rapid turnaround time, 1% of patients we escalate directly to A&E with a stroke, for example. We commissioned an independent financial analysis that shows that on average we save money across the ICS quite substantially. Here's a few of the benefits. I've got a massive spreadsheet of about 50 different benefits we've delivered now. And these are just a few highlights that I thought might be interesting. Reducing the triage time in our first phase from 11 days down to 1 day. In fact, you can see a line further down, we've now got it down to a median of 2 hours. So it's 2 hours from the optometrist sending a referral, business hours, I should say, because we're not open overnight, to that referral being in front of a clinical triager. We reduce A&E touch points, emergency eye clinic touch points by 0.3, down from 2.3 to 2. Save our patients about 22 kilometers of travel, which scaled up in NCLs, almost 400,000 kilometers per year. About 2 kilograms of CO2 is related for each patient journey to that number. Massively reduced the amount of work for GPs in terms of forwarding. We've driven an increase in the number of times we're getting pictures with our referrals from about 17% to 29%. And I think I've told you the other stuff about reducing down urgency. We're also run advice and guidance services, and even without volumetric OCT scans, which everybody thought was required in order to keep medical retina patients out of hospital, we're still hitting 52% of medical retina advice and guidance requests being managed with advice, even without regularly having volumetric OCTs. We've done a lot of work on patient choice. So we often receive referrals where a patient choice is specified. We've started to do some pilot work to go back and ask patients, well, here's a choice of 5 providers, which ones do you prefer? And we find that over half of patients changed their choice when we gave them a choice of 5 providers from the one that was included on the initial referral. And that simply reflects how many options there are. It is impossible for any one referrer to know all of the options and all the benefits of them. So by doing that from the single point of access, we can make sure that we can, we know exactly what services are wherever they are. We've done an awful lot of work around working out what's important to patients. So 378 patients ranked 18 factors that were important to them when choosing a provider. We expected, as most of the NHS assumes, that the important factors were wait time and travel distance. Turns out they were 13th and 18th out of 18 respectively. The big hitters, reputation and expertise, quality, professionalism, communication. So what we need to do now is, now that we have a better understanding of the drivers of patient preference, we need to work out how we can present neutral metrics of those factors back to the patient so they can choose the provider that works best for them. Here's some of the work we've done with digital twins. So each of those circles, this is all synthetic data. I didn't want to show real data for services in NCL, so it's all synthetic data. What it allows us to do, so we call our digital twin Gemini, which we thought was very clever. Gemini being obviously Latin for twin, and we put an I on the end. So nice marketing there. So what we can do with this is we can enter the patient's postcode, and that will bring up the full list of services that are available, translates it into travel distance, translates that into kilograms of carbon dioxide. So you can see just down here, we've got our list. And we're able then to click on individual ones. So with this tool, and it's still in development, we're able to then see a breakdown. What was the friends and family test? What's the waiting time? The nice thing we can do is we can use this to predict into the future. So by tailoring the 5 choices we give to a patient, we can over time start to drive a balancing of capacity and demand. So we can start to give patients offerings where the waiting time is lower that week than maybe it is somewhere else. So we can start to sort of balance capacity and demand by using data in this way. This one's rather nice. Underserved communities is one of the things NCL's asked us to focus on. We've mapped the index of median deprivation from every little tiny patch in north central London. That's that little patchwork of different colours. Each circle's a referring optometry practice. Big ones refer a lot. Small circles refer not many. Red ones are in areas of high deprivation. You can overlay the names of the practices that we'd engaged with. This is going back about 6 months now. And what this allows us to do is to start to identify high volume referrers in deprived areas. And we use some of this data to tailor an iEnvoy intervention where we identified such an area, and our ophthalmic nurses went out and provided training to 50 domiciliary care workers and care home workers in order to make sure that when a patient's under their care, they get the drops in the eye rather than on the cheek, which is very common feedback that was coming back, and that they understand that eye drops given after cataract surgery aren't just for when the eye is red. So here, for example, I'm filtering it down just to show high volume referrers in the most deprived areas. So again, trying to use data is one of our core features. Every month we run an education session. We typically get around 200 optometrists join us on a Teams call for that. I think we had last month off, and the next one I think is on AdNexal. This one was MR and VR, and each time that we do one of these sessions, we produce an infographic. So I'm lucky to have one of my fellows who previously went to the Royal College of Arts and is a very talented graphic designer. So every time we do an education session, we produce an infographic, and the hope is that people might put it on their screensavers or pin it up on their notice boards. And if I just go through a few of these, this one was one on cornea. Very, very positive feedback, typically well over 95% being considering each subject useful. Very high rate of people coming back, so people voting with their feet. This one was around pupils' palsies and papilledema. So we've tried to identify problem topics that come through from our referrals, then we tailor some education around that. We're about to go live with a online learning module, which is helps people to get some CPD points and generate really good referrals. We're going to get a little bit more professional in terms of our recording this year. So rather than just recording the webinars and putting them on YouTube, I think it'd be quite nice if we had a nice little green screen behind and little bits of graphics on it. So yeah, we got plans on education too. And this is an example of where people attended. So you can see we're getting good coverage across quite a large part of London, apart from the southeast. But the average attendance has gone up by about a third since that one. So I need to redraw that map for one of the more recent ones. This is the last slide. What are we doing next? Key that we get off the ground and start to scale some of the work we've done with the R&IB. We really, really want to get patient information right in early at the start of the pathway so that patients understand what's going to be involved when they're referred in and are generally more informed. We're going to expand patient choice, delivered in a totally neutral way across all of our referral pathways, and hopefully tailor the choice of 5 to try and help the system to manage the demand. We'll be embedding our digital twin Gemini in some of our standard processes to support choice. We're about to start work with the Insight Health Data Research Hub at Moorfields, which contains about 25 million patients worth of data, 25 million images worth of data, and that gives us a nice, secure, anonymized environment in which we can start to experiment with AI and work out how we could automate detection of urgent referrals or standardize a case mix to help an ICB to understand why there's variation in costs of cataract surgery across its different providers. So patient information for informed choice, and then enhancement of education, which I've already mentioned. So so that's sort of an overview. There's a huge amount of work we've done. That's by no means all of it, but the central idea is the single point of access, the mechanical handling of referrals is very important, and we do it very well. But the key is that's a really important place in the system, which we can use to coordinate the entire system. And we're shortly going to start working to make sure, as primary eye care service-based services in North Central London expand, to make sure that we're also, utilising those services maximally and just essentially trying to tackle our problems with not having enough capacity by more optimally using all the capacity that's available. I'll leave it there.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much. It's I'll just start with the first question, if I may. Alison, do we have any other on the chat box at all at the moment?
No.
Okay, great. I think, for example, for Birmingham, we are starting from this week with our ERS. Synapses is a system that we're using, and we're all entering. Oh, Twee's there as well. Brilliant. So Twee is leading. She's the head orthoptist, and she's leading on the ERS for us, for our department. So that's brilliant. How do we get everybody, as in the primary care, secondary care, motivated and engaged? I know the gains are there for the patients, for the service, but what got this initial wave of enthusiasm going? So what was your experience with that?
So I think the key thing for everyone to know is this is 100% not a technology problem. So you can run, we had to go live very quickly, and all our initial referrals were being done via NHS mail, and it worked brilliantly. We were very well fail-safe. Our turnaround time was minimal, less than 2 hours. In fact, the more technology we introduce, the slower it makes the system. So it's, I think the key thing to know is what makes a single point of access good is the relationships that you generate as a result of it, to make sure that you've got good relationships with your referrers, good relationships with your providers, that you can introduce the understanding of the system into the system. And the second is, what services are you offering? It really doesn't matter if you've got platform A, B, C, or D. And in fact, I think we've made big mistakes in eye care by focusing too much on saying all we need is a good platform. Actually, the platform's pretty much irrelevant. What's going to drive the benefit is going to be that we're giving lots of education based on what we see from those referrals, that we're using the referral data to understand where we've got, bits that are missing, that we've got really good clinicians with very high levels of expertise that we're providing advice and guidance. So I think that's probably the key thing to recognise. I mean, we essentially made an offer to our local referrers, which was, we'll make it easy for you to refer to us. We're not going to put complex platforms in front of you that requires you to know logons. We're going to give you CPD accredited education, and we'll be a visible presence to sort of phone you when you have problems, or to be a point of contact when you've got problems. And that we're more than happy to provide advice and guidance, even if it's a patient you don't want to refer, because it's brilliant. We've got a service where we've got a consultant medical retina ophthalmologist. Whenever he gets advice and guidance, he gives a massive report with learning points, with a full description of what's on the OCT. So it's a positive offer to referrers, rather than saying thou must do this in this way, because our experience is that doesn't work.
Okay, brilliant, excellent. Tui. You're mute.
How many times I do this, and I still do this. So no, I agree with everything you said, Peter. It's just I like to add a few things from my experience here. Absolutely, the first feedback is, are we creating another technology platform here? Because people think technology equating failure, upgrade, lots of things. So this isn't the case. Are we creating another system on top of system? So you need to iron that out with the staff, and for everyone, actually not just staff, anyone who's involved in this system. But I think secondly is what I'm learning at the moment is so far with my colleagues who've used the system, including optometrists and ophthalmologists, they really liked the system. They got the feedback with this new thing, but I think it's the given the autonomy to make changes a system at organizational level. So I'm now working with the referrers to get the feedback and said, actually, we can personalize certain things to your pathway, to make life easier for you, to allow it consistency, to make it easier. It's here to do a better job, to help you out. And I think that's the key message to get to everyone.
Yes, brilliant.
I mean, it's I agree with that. We've got a beautiful digital platform now, which we use to consolidate all of it. That said, we gave referrer feedback before we had that platform. We were returning new patient appointments. We were doing it via NHS mail. So the really key thing is the technology is just an enabler. It is absolutely not a single point of access. So the real key is, what's the service you're providing? And that service has to be a good service. You can have the best technology in the world. If the service ain't good and fast and responsive and visible, and we've certainly got improvements we can make, then you can have the best technology in the world and it'll fail. And we've seen that with quite a lot of attempts to deploy referral platforms into optometry.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you very much. So looking forward to actually have the interaction, and as Peter was saying, the positive feedback, because we are dependent. The work that we get comes from primary care, and what we give back is what would improve what we get from them. And this relationship and strengthening of, I think we're building relationships here to improve the service. And the more with experience sounds brilliant. It will take us some time, but yeah, brilliant.
It takes time.
Thank you so much. If there are no other questions, Alison, any other comments, anything else we need to address, or shall we move to the next speaker now?
Move on, thank you.
Thank you very much.
There's a couple of questions in the chat. I don't know if you want to just quickly address those.
I'm just conscious of time, Carrie. We can probably come to those. Yeah.
Perhaps towards the end. Righty-ho. So, Carrie, do you mind just putting on the agenda? Or okay. So Tom Reck will now present what Peter's mentioned as well, the patient support, patient information, which is, it should be, right from the beginning, the information should be provided to patients. So Tom's going to talk about it, and I'll let him introduce himself as well. So over to you, Tom. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Afternoon, everyone. I'm Tom Reck. I'm Head of Partnership and Development in RNIB. My work in the last 10 years has been largely focused on developing RNIB's hospital-based ECLO services. So I have a small team of partnership development managers. Twee, you may know one of my team, Helen Smith, who works in West Midlands, and Peter. You may know Clive Brown, who's one of my gang as well. So we are spread far and wide, a small gang. We have focused, just to add some context, RNIB's historically focused on post-diagnosis interventions, ECLO services based in hospitals. But we do know in the last few years, we've shifted that emphasis largely because the information tells us that people are demanding information much earlier in that journey. For example, historically, we've not really had any offer for cataract patients. We generally offer support to people with more serious eye conditions to help them live with their sight loss. But we know that our website has about 120,000 hits on the cataract pages and the eye health. So people on the eye health pages. So we know that people are craving information much earlier in the journey for what we would regard as fairly routine stuff that wouldn't historically have been part of our brief. I suppose it's worth also pointing out that our emphasis it isn't necessarily on the clinical intervention. That's Peter's articulated that very well in terms of the single point of access, and almost like the perspective on that single point of access from our point of view is presents an opportunity because it's an intervention that might actually be an opportunity for us to give people some information by default, as a kind of not by default, but more as a systemic opportunity to capture people much earlier in the journey. And we know that from the data and feedback that people crave bona fide information rather than searching on Google. So single point of access, Peter described how there's almost like a test and check on the accuracy and credibility of the referrals. The statistics that he quoted, the percentages, paint a picture of, there needs to be some education back out to referrers. From our point of view, whatever platform is used, we are seeking opportunities to add in information that may be useful for people in the broader health context, in the broader health perspective. So, for example, someone may embark on a cataract journey, be referred into secondary to have cataract, for example, assessed. And we would want to make sure that they're given information about how they cope in the here and now, whether there's a risk to their job, if they've got any emotional support issues. So it's that broader perspective. Our bread and butter isn't the clinical journey. That will look after itself. Our emphasis is on piggybacking onto whatever systems are developed so that we get an opportunity to intervene with the kind of stuff that we do, which is supporting people in the broader sense. So that's the kind of context, if you like. And we've developed a number of different models over the last couple of years about trying to get information to people earlier. A lot of these are focused in on primary care optometry, which is one thing. And we know that we have to be really careful about imposed upon optometrists in the high street and in the field, if you like, with adding extra elements to their work by including stuff that historically they wouldn't have talked about with patients, not in a systemic way, maybe in an ad hoc way, and maybe based on kind of local support networks. They hand out leaflets to the local charity or whatever. But our goal is to try and get something more systemic and embedded, something where we can say, okay, people who are going through the eye care pathway and getting referred into hospital eye services or wherever for assessment have got something that they can cling on to till they can get that broader support. They're getting some kind of offer. That's the context, if you like. So we're trying some of the models with optometry at that first stage, using a number of, we're talking to platform providers, synapses and IV in West Yorkshire, which this one we'll talk about in a minute, and with Opera. So about how we could embed our support in that context, but also in the single point of access, that next stage at that triage point, what could we do there to kind of embed our support? That's the context, if you like, for the next slide. So Carrie, if you could kindly put the next slide up. So RNIB has been involved in the accelerated pilots that Peter referred to. I think we're actively involved, the partnership development managers, in 5 of the 7, including the one that Peter's referred to. Clive Brown and Helen Doyle are part of that. But the one that's perhaps most exciting for us, and the one that's generating referrals into services, is in West Yorkshire. And in West Yorkshire, it's an accelerated site, and it's focused in mainly on cataract in the first stage. It is intended to be used for all eye conditions, but the patients are referred in a regular way from the optometrist using the IV platform, and they're referred into the West Yorkshire single point of access. Now, the patients who are suitable for a contact, an automated contact, will receive a text or a WhatsApp, and if they don't respond to them, they get an automated call, and that's done through a voice synthesized AI platform. And they're asked a number of questions which usually determine what Peter's described already, the regular stuff that you would need for making a cataract referral. But we've bolted on 3 questions that are non-clinical in their kind of intention, if you like. And one of the questions is around support around information. Do you require some information about this condition? The second one is around support. Do you require any support with daily living? And the third one is around well-being needs. So it's, do you want to talk to someone about this? So we've managed to condense, if you like, RNIB's entire offer into 3 questions. So patients who respond yes to the automated questions, or to the text or to the WhatsApp, that automatically generates a call back from RNIB's waiting well team. We have a secure RNIB NHS mailbox. It generates a PDF to that mailbox, which is kind of like serviced and monitored, and then patients get a call back from an RNIB member of staff on that waiting well team. So the point about that is the optoms don't have to do anything different in their day job. They're just referring in for cataract. But the single point of access, by embedding our 3 questions, both in the automated phase, there is a corresponding human element to this as well. So if people declare that they don't want the automated call, the text or whatever, they will be called by a corresponding kind of parallel lines, human staffed intervention. And if they don't respond to any of the calls, they'll get a letter with the same offer, with the same 3 questions on. So there is belt and braces, if you like. So the whole thing enables by default automated embedding of non-clinical support right at source across the entire piece, and it's the one of all of the different models that we've developed that seems to be generating referrals and interest from patients. So, Carrie, could you go to the next slide, please? Yeah, I suppose the alternative to that would be a kind of ad hoc offer from optometrists if patients had presented in a distressed way. And we've got lots of stories of patients just with cataract saying, well, how am I going to get to work, and I'll have to stop driving, and what I'm going to say to my employer, and what will happen on the day. Those kind of non-clinical soft questions, they're given a point of contact. And we know from the accelerator research that was done around patient feedback that these were real concerns that came out of the research from the team. We're actually supporting the team and then another phase of that now, the research team around the accelerator sites, with some feedback around the children and families stuff. So they've valued that kind of feedback from a non-clinical perspective. So what's happened in the 6 months since that West Yorkshire and accelerator pilot went live? Well, we're 6 months into it. The referrals have kind of steadily increased month on month to approximately 70 a month. This means that people are saying yes to one of those 3 questions. and they're getting some callback. And the patient to issue ratio, that basically means that people are presenting with a number of different issues that they want. So eye health information, eye condition information is up there. Information on local charities that might be able to help, information about where they get aids, equipment, low vision, and a large part of it is emotional support as well. I want to talk to someone about the journey, what's happening. And we know that when we talk to people about whether they're more likely to attend for their appointments, should they be better informed, we know that's come back as well in the research. So there is a kind of as yet unresearched spin-off potential attendance at appointments if people are better informed at that journey. But the other thing is it gives them a contact into RNIB that enables a conduit to a broader suite of stuff. To be accessed really at source and as part of what looks like a kind of a broad health perspective. We can go to the next slide, please, Gary. Of course, RNIB launched the eye care support pathway about a year, coming up for a year ago now, maybe 10 months or something. And this is an attempt to kind of like embed generic patient support into all of the different stages of the eye care support pathway. This is all around, from our perspective, stage one, different stages, and those different stages are at initial referral, through waiting, through diagnosis, and then post-diagnosis. So stages 3 and 4 are our historic work really. So the waiting piece and the preliminary initial referral is very much where this piece of activity fits with the eye care support pathway. And again, just to reiterate, all of the stuff around the different platforms and the different MOs for referring in, whether it's ERS or ERS systems, we are on board with all of them. We're trying lots of different stuff. We've got a models paper which shows about 5-6 different ways in which we're trying this. The end goal is to get to a place where we are able to piggyback on the back of clinical systems, because optoms and clinicians are doing our work in terms of triaging who needs our support by virtue of the fact that they're doing their assessments and tests and sending people to the single point of access. What we want is an opportunity to bolt onto that a broader perspective, a broader array of support that we know patients are craving, just from the feedback that we get from the hits on website and the feedback we get from our research. So summing up with access to support at every every stage of the eye care journey. And I think Carrie, we can just go to questions and answers. Now, if you wanted to see the actual questions, I can briefly share what they are, the way we're asking them, because we do understand, preempting some questions, that it could be quite alarming for someone to be told that the RNIB will be in touch, if they're referred in for cataract. But we know people are going to looking for safe places to look for information and support. And if we can get the wording on those questions right, and it doesn't seem to have frightened anyone off in West Yorkshire, get the wording on those questions right, we know that we could apply this to other eye conditions as well. In fact, we aim to test that if we're given an opportunity in the next round of accelerator sites. But if that would be useful, I can share the questions, but I'll just leave the time now for any feedback or questions, if that's okay.
Thank you very much, Tom. I think because of time, is it okay if we move on to the next speaker? And if there are any questions, I'm sure there will be. We will sort of get back to you. It is such a fantastic thing to see how well the system can integrate with all the patients' non-clinical needs and automation of some of it. So brilliant. Thank you very much. So if it's all right, we will move on to the next speaker, who is Sunil Mimitra, and he's going along with the theme of this referring primary care to secondary care and different mechanisms and improvements that are happening. So the Bristol experience, over to you, Cyril. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Hi everyone, hi Bushra, thank you very much for the invite to speak. I'm really looking forward to actually telling you a bit about the work we've done in Bristol and also using this as an opportunity to get some feedback from everyone to see what their thoughts about this new way of working that we have established and how you think it can apply to different circumstances. In Bristol, similar to Moorfields, we have, and similar to many other places in the country, we have a virtual imaging hub set up. And this is used for multiple subspecialties in our eye care service, including medical retina, glaucoma, anterior segment and cornea. And one example is in our medical retina service, where patients who are receiving intravitreal injections for retinal vein occlusion, diabetic macular edema, age-related macular degeneration, come for their injections, and then as part of their follow-up have their OCT review, vision check and other measures taken at our shopping centre. And patients love this. We've done detailed analyses of their experiences and how they feel about this, and they found it great. They really enjoy coming to the shopping centre. They find the travel to be less burdensome, and they really appreciate the fact that they don't need to wait so long in our waiting rooms to see the doctor. And this is the theme that we were slightly surprised by, because we wondered whether patients may find it, a poorer experience for patients and them to complain of that experience being inadequate for them when they didn't see the clinician every single visit. But actually, we've been pleasantly surprised to see that they prefer this in a lot of ways. Now, if I just go to the next, is there a way for me to control the slides, or is it just, I just have to say, is it okay to go to the next slide?
It's up to you. I can move on if you give me the nudge.
Is that okay just to
yeah,
go?
Perfect.
So we've been running this for some time now, and one of the bottlenecks that we've found is that it's great. Patients come, they have their vision, their intraocular pressure measured with eye care, an OCT taken, an Optos taken as well. Let's take the example of diabetic macular edema. But when we're reviewing these images and sets of images in our virtual clinics by, say, optometrists, ophthalmologists, other members of the team, one of the difficulties that arises is, what if you've got a patient who is under your follow-up, they have a normal pressure, they have a stable OCT, they have a normal or stable appearing wide field retinal imaging, but their vision is down? What do you do in that situation? In our setup, what we were doing is we're calling the patients, we're talking to them, they're saying, well, look, your vision's down a bit. We don't know fully why that may be, and we might recommend that you go to your optometrist. We may suspect that they have cataract, ocular surface disease, or other ocular pathology which might be causing this, but without seeing that ourselves, that's really the rate limiting step, the bottleneck, the obstruction which is stopping us from really rolling out virtual clinics and using the imaging hub for many more indications. And look, let's talk about retinal vein occlusion. In a lot of those patients, you really have to check them carefully for the incidence and development of rubeosis or features of ischemic vein occlusion. And if you only do OCT, wide field imaging, vision and pressure, you may miss out on the opportunity to screen them for neovascularization of the iris or other pathology. So something that we've only recently started doing is introducing the concept of slit lamp videos in our imaging hub. And we hope that this can be something and done in a similar way to the acquisition of OCT and other forms of imaging, and be an efficient way to add extra quality of care to our patients, but also as a way to have a more holistic examination of our patients' eyes who attend our shopping centre imaging hub, and to be able to reduce carbon emissions and to provide overall better quality of care, because Pete mentioned the huge amount of carbon emissions for patients who attend our clinics and services, and when we're duplicating appointments, that only worsens and exacerbates the problem. So if we see a patient with cataract who's under our care already, and we know that they've got a reduction in vision, and we can see side by side at consecutive visits that whilst their OCT is stable, whilst their Optos is stable, whilst their pressure is fine, they've got an objective increase in their nuclear sclerosis, that gives us a really unique opportunity to offer patients that additional care and their intervention to improve their vision, not only at an early opportunity, but in a more efficient way that suits patients, reduces the number of visits, and leads us to improving their vision sooner rather than it would have done anyways. We also really hope that this will unlock a whole new number of patients, or groups of patients, who previously we're needing to see them in our face-to-face clinics who can now go to our imaging hubs. And there's, when we sat down and discussed this as a group, there were so many groups of patients who we thought might be suitable for a virtual clinic when it's unlocked by a slit lamp imaging in the virtual hub. For example, patients who have had trabeculectomies who were checking their blebs, patients who have got retinal dystrophies who were just screening them to make sure they don't develop cataract, in which case we'd be able to offer them that surgery earlier. And of course, the main one, which is patients with retinal vein occlusion who might be at risk of developing rubeosis. Just go to the next slide, please. So what we've been doing as our pilot is we're having to strike a fine balance with our retinal vein occlusion patients, because you may be thinking, well, when are you going to take the video? Because in the imaging hub, all the patients are going to be dilated to have their scans. But if you dilate them all, are you going to miss the opportunity to actually identify the rubeosis? So what we're doing really is measuring their vision, checking their pressure, putting in the dilating drops, and whilst they're slightly dilated, so that we're not obscuring so much of the ability to see their potential new vessels, we're then doing their video so that we can check for their new vessels, also have a reasonably dilated enough pupil to screen for cataract, and then also not have the pupil too dilated such that it would stop us from seeing other findings and features in the anterior segment. We're saving all of these videos to a software, a PACS system that we already use for slit lamp imaging and anterior segment imaging called iSuite, which works well because clinicians who are reviewing those videos can have this piece of software on every single device they have in the hospital, but also it's also available through remote desktop. And if the clinicians have their own laptop issued to them by the trust, our IT team is able to remotely deploy that piece of software with no additional complications. In terms of who's been doing the process, it's allied health professionals who are training up to do this. We're now training our imaging team to take these videos and to roll this out. And what we're doing is we're creating this almost recipe, as to different indications needing different types of videos. So for example, if you've got a patient who's got a trabeculectomy bleb or a patient with glaucoma who needs to be assessed, they might have lids and lashes checked, conjunctiva, cornea, look down, lift the lid, have a look at the bleb. Whereas if it's a patient who's a medical retina patient, you might only really be interested in the cornea and the lens. So you don't want to look at too many things to overburden the clinicians who are going to be reviewing these things. And to get around this, we're kind of making a custom standardized sequence of a slit lamp video acquisition, which means that it's efficient to be reviewed afterwards. And you may be thinking, isn't this going to take really a long time to review all these videos, to actually watch them all for potentially a minimal gain? Well, what we've actually done is we've really fine-tune this video acquisition process down so that in a medical retina patient, your video per eye is probably less than 30 seconds, and that captures your cornea and your lens and your iris all in order per eye. And the great thing is when you load it in the Windows Media Player, you can actually change your playback speed to 2 or even 3 times. So you don't need to watch these videos in real time. You can just get that feel for quite easily of what you need to see, and hopefully it won't add too much time to the whole process. If we can just go to the next slide, please. So we've been doing this for a few months now, and it's been a massive journey. First of all, to get the equipment, to train people, to develop the standard operating procedures, to identify which patients are doing this, and it's still a part of a pilot process, but we've now been able to review these videos as a group of clinicians and colleagues who are looking at this, get feedback from the people who are recording the videos, and the videos are in good quality. And I'm hoping just to very briefly share my own video, if that's okay, just to show you what the process is like after this. We can record it in 3D, but we're doing it in 2D at the moment because the reality is that no one has any 3D screens or 3D TVs in their clinic, and no one can have any Apple Vision Pro headsets in their own houses for the time being because they're too expensive. So we're just doing it in 2D, but we feel that this gives most of the benefit and most of the patients for the time being, and maybe that's something we can unlock in the future. And in terms of the numbers of patients in the clinics, so far we've been able to continue with the same number of patients in each stream. We are looking to reduce the number of patients in each stream to account for the extra time needed to review those videos by the clinicians and colleagues who are going to be reviewing all that. But in terms of the time to do this, I think it's going to be similar to other imaging modalities once you have that level of expertise and training, which dramatically improves with time. Let's go to the next slide, please. One of the issues that we've had in our imaging hub is if there's been some abnormality detected, some unusual appearance or a cause for concern that's been identified when patients attend the imaging hub where there isn't a doctor or clinician to review that patient. So what we actually have is that on the slit lamp, this can connect directly to Microsoft Teams. You click the little arrow next to the camera button in the corner of Microsoft Teams and you can click slit lamp. And that's cool because you can then do a direct call with your second on call registrar who's in the main hospital and say, hi, look, I've seen this patient who's got this weird appearance. I'm a bit worried about them. Rather than me just sending them to the emergency eye department in the eye hospital, which is already really burdened by huge numbers of patients attending there already, can you give me a 1-minute consult and just give me your advice as to whether you think this patient can attend the eye hospital or not? And I think that's really taking advantage of new technologies. And when you've got a slick service already with expertise at your fingertips, it means that you can really leverage and make the most of that expertise that we have available to us with the benefit of these new ways of imaging patients as well. Just go to the next slide, please. One of the really good things about this is, even though it's great for capturing videos, it's really good for showing patients their problems. It's really good for adding that extra dimension of care in terms of seeing a slit lamp examination as part of review. One of probably the best things about this is it's going to enable us and has enabled us to deliver some really great training for our imaging team and allied health professionals. Because if they start doing these standardized examinations of the lids, the lashes, the conj, the cornea, the lens, the anterior chamber, every time they do a video, that gets reviewed by someone, and it offers a unique opportunity to provide real-time, high-quality feedback to say, hey, you could maybe focus a bit better on the cornea or make your beam width a bit narrower. And before you know it, each person who's doing all these videos has got their own portfolio of hundreds of videos that they've done themselves, and they can see their own benefit and improvement in time about how they're improving their slit lamp examinations. And I think when we've got such a workforce issue with training people in ophthalmology, and given that slit lamp examination is possibly one of the most challenging skills to develop an examination technique and skill in, we see that this could be a really good stepping stone from going from imaging into maybe seeing patients directly and being able to examine patients. And when people develop those new skills, they can even offer and say, look, if they see a red flag, they can refer that and get opinions about other things as well. So training is something that I'm really passionate about, and I think for me that's a really great byproduct of this whole process. The next steps that we're doing is now really booking dedicated clinics, and that's going to be starting at the end of August, or sorry, beginning of August. We've been recording lots of videos for a few months already and reviewing them, but booking dedicated virtual slit lamp clinics. I think if it works, it possibly presents a brilliant model for primary secondary care integration, where if the model of, say, having a video recorded for a patient who attends a virtual imaging hub in a shopping centre works in secondary care, you could make the argument that optometrists in the community recording similar videos of their own examinations, which are the examinations that prompt referrals in the first place, could be a brilliant tool to help support advice and guidance services to make sure that we can leverage the expertise that we have in our own units. And I hope it'll be interesting for other people to give their feedback, because I know there's lots of limitations and bottlenecks and issues with training, equipment, technology, costs and clinics. But yeah, I'd be really grateful for everyone's opinions actually, and to see what everyone thinks about this way of working. Just get the next slide if that's okay. Yes, that's it. I don't know if there's time, Bushra, just to share, like I could show a screen sharing maybe, just to show what it looks like.
Of course, we've got 3 or 4 minutes, but as you're putting it on, brilliant. You put UBM in, and that's the complete package then, isn't it? The patient doesn't need to come into the sort of, eye clinic looking at angle and everything else. But yeah, brilliant.
So this is our software where you can just click on, view your file. It plays in Windows Media Player. This might be a bit laggy because I'm doing it through remote desktop whilst logging from home, whilst also screen sharing on a video call. So if it's a bit jumpy, please excuse that. But what hopefully does come across is that the quality is certainly sufficient to be able to see that whether a patient's got blepharitis, lid margin disease, any issues with their conjunctiva, clear views of iris detail to be able to determine whether the patient may have rubeosis or not. And you can easily tell whether a patient might have lens opacity or a cataract as well. So
could I just ask, can we freeze the image and magnify it?
Yeah, we can. So this, of course, you can pause, play, do anything. And also, because it's a video, one of the things that we've had a problem with in our clinics when we have slit lamp photography is a photo is like a snapshot, right? And if your photo's not quite right, it's not quite highlighting the area that you want it to, it's like, it's not so useful. The good thing about a video is that you can just scrub it, you know, and you can just slide the cursor for the playback time along the whole 1 minute, and you can go to the part of that video which you want to see the most, and you can pause it, zoom it, magnify it, rewind it, and watch it again if you want to. And I think by having that setup, it's not taking too much time because you're not trying to fiddle around too much to get that perfect photo. You train people to just do a standardized exam, and that takes the time it takes to do the recording, which is just 30 seconds.
That's brilliant. I will not talk about cost at the moment, but yeah, once you bring, I suppose, more data, it is a wonderful step forward, I must say, because it takes out that fear. As a med-rad person, I'll say, what if I'm missing rubeosis? Or if there's cataract, would you be giving patients information so that when they come in, we can consent easily and do their cataract? You know, that would be the next.
Yeah, so that's a really, really good question, because in Moorfields and in Croydon and other places, I've been to brilliant talks where people have talked about digital cataract service. You know, patients referred with cataract, you call them, you talk to them, you understand their symptoms, and you list them on the phone and consent them by the phone and do it this way. But to me is a bottleneck, because you don't have that understanding of what the examination's like. How dense is the cataract? How small is the pupil? Do they have pseudoexfoliation? Do they have all sorts of other things? You know, so if you combine the video with the ability to telephone the patient, I personally don't see a reason why you couldn't call that patient and say, look, I can tell that your retina looks stable. However, we know that your vision is reduced. I can see that from your examination last time and examination this time, I can see objectively that you have a worsening of your cataract. And I think you might benefit from being listed for cataract surgery. What do you think? I think that's a reasonable way of progressing there.
Brilliant. Oh, thank you very much. So we've got one. We'll take one question from Pradeep. Hello. We're a bit stretched for time, but there you go. Thank you.
It's amazing. Thank you, Sunil. This is what we need. A couple of questions, if I could ask, around the workforce. Did you have any challenges setting this up, and what were they? Workforce related, getting the right skills in to support this clinic.
Absolutely. So it's so hard to find someone who has free time to do something new.
Yeah.
That's one of been the biggest challenges, because for our imaging team, they're fully booked doing all their work streams and you know, in OC, they're booked in for OCT, slit lamp imaging and anterior. They've got a full timetable all the time. So we had actually, as part of the Royal College's Physician Associates pilot, a physician associate in Bristol, and we thought a really good way to use that physician associate skills, because they had a lot of free time in their timetable to spend doing new different ways of working, was given that they'd sat in loads of clinics and they had a basic understanding of doing slit lamp videos. In their free time, they were really part of the pilot, because they were just going there, taking the videos, and they were being reviewed by other people afterwards, and then we could make the diagnosis afterwards for those patients. And with the pilot, when we showed how many videos we can do in a session, we showed the quality of the videos, we showed how it could work, and predicted how many avoidance of face-to-face recalls we could do. That then made the case for our imaging team to say, okay, can we redistribute some of our wealth in our imaging team to start maybe doing some booked clinics for the slit lamp video stream in our imaging hub? So that's been fortuitous, having that kind of person's time, effort and energy to do that as the pilot. And we felt it was an appropriate role for a physician associate to do, especially given, you know, controversy about physician associates. We thought that was an appropriate thing for them to be doing.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, Sunil. Very, very exciting stuff. I think that's would be so helpful as we learn how to improve the digital aspect of the information that we get and maximizing it. So it's brilliant. So now our next speaker, last for this afternoon, but so much looking forward, because again, going with the theme, how do we improve the information that we get from the referrers, and how we actually make sure that they know what they're looking at, and how, you know, as we heard earlier, a lot of urgent referrals, which they think are urgent. With appropriate training, you can downgrade them and save your urgent referrals. So over to Tim, who would be talking to us about diagnostics and multimodal software. Thank you very much, Tim.
Thank you very much, everyone. Hopefully you can see my screen. I'm going to share mine if that's okay, just so I can control the slides and so I keep it to time as well. But thank you all for allowing me to speak on this wonderful programme this afternoon. What I want to do with these I'll hopefully get through my slides in about 15 minutes to tell my story, just to give you guys some time to ask any questions. But if we do run out of time, please contact me for anything about education or anything like that. So I drive the education team in Heidelberg Engineering in the UK. And what I wanted to do this afternoon is really tell you the story about how we handle multimodal software now, and actually how the word multimodal is in itself very much a Heidelberg word, because Heidelberg, we've really been distributing diagnostic solutions, I should say, for around about the last 35 years. But interestingly, these days we're really focusing on 3 products now. So I'm sure many of you on this call and perhaps watching this recording are familiar with the system on the left. That's the Heidelberg OCT Spectralis. That's been around probably about 15 years now, if I have the Spectralis out there. Anterion is our new platform. It's the OCT for the front of the eye. I'm going to whiz through the features of that. But really the focus and the kind of end part of my story today will really be about multimodal software, because that's a big change for us as a company now. Now, of course, our devices have always been driven by software, like all ophthalmic imaging companies. But the interesting thing about us is we have really focused on this side and grown it in the last 10 years or so. And what a lot of people don't actually know is Heidelberg Engineering actually own Medisoft. So we purchased Medisoft in 2017. And what I'm going to give you a very quick showcase of as well is the way that software works with ours through a platform called Medisight, which many of you probably already use. So I'm going to talk about how that works with our technology. So when I'm ever introducing our platform to new customers and talking to old ones, I always use our software, the Heidelberg Eye Explorer, as the glue really that holds our 2 main OCT products together. And you can see with this image here, this is a montage of images captured with the anterior on the right there. You can see these wonderful OCTs at the front of the eye, and I've stitched them together with OCTs at the back of the eye taken from the Spectralis. And you can even just about make out all the various measurements we can take with these 2 systems of these of the eye. And the key here is the software, because it ties our products together. Now, a lot of people already know that Spectralis has really coined the phrase multimodality in terms of imaging, because in ophthalmic imaging, there was really no OCT that could ever do simultaneous things together, things like fluorescein ICG and OCT at the same time. And that's been one of the big things about the Spectralis. And this is just a few of the many range of features it can actually do. Now, during the COVID pandemic, what was very interesting for us as a company is a lot of clinicians and hospitals out there always viewed the Spectralis as this huge, all singing, all dancing, fluorescein ICG OCT monster. A lot of people didn't actually realize we have a skinny version, and this is actually the standard Spectralis system that we actually use to support a lot of the hubs that sprang up out of the COVID pandemic. And actually, since, as the ophthalmic model of clinics has evolved and changed over the last 5 years, setting up these hubs is very much a thing we do with this small, skinny standard system. And actually, incidentally, that's the exact same system that is actually orbiting Earth right now. So we have one of these on the International Space Station. We sent the first system up in 2013, and then I think it's the first extraterrestrial OCT upgrade, because we upgraded it in 2016 to do OCTA as well. So that's been flying around Earth ever since. And what's amazing is the astronauts themselves capture their own OCT images of their own eyes, send them back to Houston, and they're processed. And what's been really great, if you're interested in this, is it's been a big part of the identification of spaceflight associated neuroocular syndrome, SANS. So, and there's increasing work we're doing with the European Space Agency that I'm incredibly proud of, and NASA is a continuing thing as well. But the simple reason why that happened is just down to the robust multimodal nature of the spectralis. It made it the perfect system for up there. So what the backbone of this system has always been the kind of backbone of Heidelberg, really, about confocal scanning laser optics. And that's one of the things we focus on with the spectralis. And in conjunction with that, we lock onto the retina to do a thing called automatic real-time tracking, where we build up the image quality of the OCT. And that's why a lot of people always say, oh, I want to see the resolution of an OCT. It's because of that USP we have with the system. And because of that, we can do 10-layer segmentation at the same time as traditional angiography. On top of that as well, from a multimodal point of view, we have various lenses. We've got this high mag lens. This is a relatively new lens. This is very much for research, but does allow you to image individual photoreceptors, very much like adaptive optics, but doesn't cost anywhere near as what adaptive optics does. And you can just fix this into most spectralis systems. Anterior segment lens, that's proved very popular in some of our primary care units that actually have spectralises, just to do pachymetry and angle assessment as well, and even looking at cells in the anterior chamber there. That was a project that was running for a while. But very much in hospitals, most departments have the wide field lens for not only doing imaging, wide field OCT, but also angiography as well. And then ultra wide field, which is, of course, the big shift and everything everyone's asking for at the moment. We've been doing it for quite some time from an angiography perspective, because it really does give you incredible imaging of the whole of the back of the eye. And we really focus on doing that with angiography. So just really quickly now, talking about the Anterion. The Anterion was launched actually about 6 years ago, and it's still growing, because this is a big move for Heidelberg. We've taken a new OCT product into the world of biometry. And what's very interesting now is using OCT for biometry, and anterior eye assessment is now actually becoming a gold standard, because we have a lot of competition out there now. But we've always pushed the Anterion in the way it can be multimodal in itself by replacing effectively 3 other devices. So with one machine, you could do biometry, tomography. What I mean by that is topography, so very accurate curvature identification of the front and the back of the cornea, and OCT measurements, the anterior segment. And the way this works is we use different apps. And I want you to remember that word apps, because it comes back in when we start talking about the software in a moment. So with these apps, we could do things like the cornea app, where we gather, over 16,000 data points, very accurate record of the cornea. We can also even now segment the epithelial thickness. So that's very good for monitoring for patients with very early keratoconus. We can also use this information to do grading and screening for keratoconus with the score module, which is all based in our software. And here we have the cataract app. This is for, of course, doing biometry, and there you can see the various formulas we have, and our software actually has a spherical and a toric calculator built into it, so you can do a full cataract workup from just within the Heidelberg HiX platform. Metrics app. This is very much for measuring things in the front of the eye, and as you can see with this image here, you've got all the different boundaries we can quantify of the cornea, the lens thickness, the lens volt, even the lens tilt. But also we could also do like a 3-dimensional overview of the chamber angle. So in some clinics we've actually managed to replace gonioscopy by using OCT in this sense, and I do think that's something that will change going forward. But as a former OSP and a passionate imager, my excitement, and I know a lot of ophthalmologists share the same passion with me, is always about imaging. And I think what's just great about this platform is just the wide range of incredible images we can capture to record pathology and treatment procedures. So here you've got an example of some of the amazing images we can capture with this system. Actually, I took this one. This is an incredible image of a Bardevelt tube where you can still see the suture within the plastic tube there. So here's the kind of focus of what I want to talk about, because this is where we're heading. This is the new platform, the Heidelberg Eye Explorer, or otherwise known as HIX2. And we're rolling these out across a wide range of our sites. We've probably got about 60, if not 65% of our historical Heidelberg sites now converted to HIX2. And really what this software does is it moves into the new world of DICOM. And this is a big part of ophthalmic imaging that really should have happened 20 years ago, but due to digital photography and all sorts of reasons, it's just taken longer for that to happen. But finally, we're getting there. And it's not just us. Other manufacturers are all jumping on board now. And the key is looking for this true ophthalmic grade DICOM, because that is how we can easily transfer and share much richer image data files. Now, here is an example of the Medisight platform. And what I'm going to do is I just want to show you this first before I start talking about HIX2, because really through Medisight, you can have this interactive platform where you not only can a clinician very quickly and easily in a fast virtual clinic view the patient's VAs alongside with their OCT images, but actually through Medisight, there's a context link which could take you straight into the HIX software. And a lot of our sites that have implemented this with their EMR, it's really made a very big difference in the speed of getting patients through these virtual clinics. So this is what the software looks like. And I know it's sometimes quite hard to get everyone excited about software until you actually use it and click on it yourself. But if you just take a moment to look at what you can see on the screen here, here is an example of the real power of using DICOM with imaging data, because within this HIX2 database, you can actually see down the left-hand side, we have spectralis images here, but on the right-hand side, the same patient, you have the availability to display images from Optos, Topcon fundus images, even Zeiss OCT, or really for that matter, any other manufacturer of any imaging platform that is DICOM available is what this software can hoover up. And really is very much the future of ophthalmic imaging. It's having a one window to all this data. And as you can see, we can also host Anterion and Spectralis data side by side within this. And the way we display other manufacturers' images is with this. This is our latest DICOM viewer, and here you have full functionality of zoom and filters and everything you'd need to with other manufacturer images. There's some Optos images, center view. These are Zeiss OCTs, and of course for the anterior segment as well. So for biometry, topography, we can display anything that can output a DICOM, and DICOM is really the key word. And for our own data as well, we've got a lot of clinicians that use it this way, where you can very quickly fire up all the historical images and scroll up and down through them alongside with their fluorescein and ICG imaging if that's something required. Now, the big word these days is, of course, AI, and I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't mention this part of our software. It's very much the early days, I should warn you about that, but we do have this availability to host other apps. And the key word, again, is the word apps here. So what this exciting potential is for other manufacturers, like, for example, RetinSight with a fluid monitor, Retin AI, have the availability to host their app within our software. And the way this would work is you would drag your OCT to the app. It would then be pseudo-anonymized, go off into a cloud, get processed by an AI algorithm, and come back to give the clinician very, very useful new information analyzed by AI, like, for example, fluid quantification, which can completely transform the way we treat patients with anti-VEGF therapies and all sorts of fluid-related disease. The big one now is, as new treatments are on the horizon, is of course quantification for areas of geographic atrophy. And as was established last year at Euretina, OCT is really going to be the golden tool for marking those areas of atrophy, but manually, it's almost impossible to do that in a timely fashion. So AI is the key really to very accurate geographic atrophy tracking to actually see where those photoreceptors are lost and quantify these areas of geographic atrophy. So it's an exciting time. But I've got to warn you all, really, that the big boundary I hit every time I talk about this in a new department is, of course, clinical governance, because the NHS do not like data to go outside of its safety shell. And that's the scary thing for a lot of trusts is where is this data going? How anonymized is it? How safe is it? So that's a big part of my job and the job of my MD Tosh at the moment is really trying to promote this technology and work around how we're going to deal with clinical governance. But it's an exciting time. But the key really is about software and DICOM going forwards. So that's the end of my talk. If you've got any questions, I'll wait here for you guys. But thank you very much.
No, thank you very much, Tim. It was very, very interesting. But I just, in the spirit of neutrality that UKOA has, I must say there are various platforms that are available to interrogate data. And I'm sure it's not just sort of one platform specific where the information can be used, as you say, the word multimodal. But yes, we've had experience with Heidelberg for so many years, along with others as well.
Yeah.
So maybe we will take a few questions, but I think members, if they want to hear about other vendors that are available providing similar service, we'll be more than happy to facilitate that. And a question to you, because DICOM compatibility is, all the diagnostics now, it has to be DICOM compatible. And I'm not, because you wouldn't be telling us that, but there are other software available where all the Heidelberg data can be interrogated on another platform,
Absolutely.
apart from HiX2.
No, absolutely. And please forgive me. Of course, I'm going to be a bit one-sided working for Heidelberg, but no, absolutely. The word DICOM is really what opens the door to all manufacturers now, because you can just download something like micro DICOM, and that will read you can download that through a Google search, and that will read any DICOM data. And the key really is that all manufacturers need to conform to a certain standard of DICOM, because it's all very well saying, oh yeah, we do DICOM, but what is that DICOM? Is it a true scrollable OCT? And we've been going to a lot of these NHSX digital meetings over the past year, Tosh and I, where this has really been the core subject. Can we all supply that scrollable OCT DICOM? And to be completely honest and neutral myself, I've seen that all the manufacturers are able to do that. And that's the key for opening the doors, really, from getting that accurate information from a primary care setting into a secondary care environment in a package that's got as much detail and quality as possible, rather than manufacturer specific OCT images or like video files shared via WhatsApp. I've seen a whole host of horrifying ways to transmit images. DICOM is really the true standard we should all work to. And the good news is the industry ship is on the same channel. I know we're all competing manufacturers here, but we all are in agreement that this is the way to go, just like radiology have done. This is exactly what we should have done years and years ago, but we are getting there. It's just going to take time.
Brilliant. And I think even in our last face-to-face meeting in London, we know that nationally there is a drive to make sure that these DICOM standards are sort of adopted universally, nationally, basically, so that the data sets that we are getting, they are sort of interoperable between different systems. And as you said, this should have happened 20 years ago. And the funny thing is, we talked about this a good decade ago, saying, DICOM compatibility and making sure. But, anyway, we're coming around to that understanding that something needs to be done and making sure it's standardized, usable data. But thank you very much. It's always very interesting to look at extraterrestrial OCTs and stuff as well. Very, very interesting. Now, do we have any questions from any of the members, please? Anything you want to ask, add, advise? More than happy to take any questions. And I will give that a minute or so. We're quite lucky that Tim actually went through his slides in a very timely manner. So we've got a couple of minutes spare, which I'm sure everybody would appreciate having back, unless there are any questions. Nope, that's fine. I'm sure people will be sort of writing to us or looking at when the slides are shared. This is such an exciting time. And the thing is, the fundamentals, the basics, right to the tertiary care. This is one continuum. And we just need to make sure that the information, the diagnostics, the technology, it helps ophthalmology. And it's one of those great specialties. I mean, after radiology, applied to living tissue in movement, in action, how we can improve the standards of care and adopt new working patterns which would help with our workforce and all the other issues that we have. So with that, I would thank all the speakers today. I think it was a very, very interesting conversations and presentations that we had today. Many more to come. Please do write to us if you have any other suggestions. This is my message to all the members. But goodbye and see you perhaps, or definitely for our face-to-face meeting. So thank you. Bye-bye.